Hey guys, welcome to the channel. So today's video we're going to be replacing the radiator in a 2006 Honda Civic. This is for the 2006 to the 2011, but let me show you some of the parts you're going to need for this job. Obviously we're going to need a brand new radiator. This is actually a Denso one, and it's the same brand that the factory actually uses. Honda, Toyota, I'm not sure who else uses these, but Denso is a really good brand. They do have this on Amazon, so you guys can pick it up on there. There will be a link in the description down below, so you guys can pick up this brand new radiator that looks really nice. Also for this job, I'm going to be replacing one of the two fans. One of the fans does not work because a lot of coolant had poured down and it was not working. So we will be using this brand new one and then reusing the old fan. So this fan will sit right there. The one I'm going to swap from the old radiator will sit on that side. Plus a couple extra of the tubings, and then this little kit, which is a funnel kind of coolant refill kit. You will need something like this in order to properly top it off, as well as bleed out all the air bubbles. There will be links in the description down below for all this stuff and more, because there's some special tools you're probably going to need, or at least really want. So yeah, definitely check this out. Link in the description down below. Pick up all these supplies and everything you need. So I did already have this cover off because I was working on another job, but in order to remove it, there's going to be a tab right here on each side, as well as right here, here, and here. And then what you'll do is like pop this out from underneath there, as well as the other side, and then you'll want to slide the whole thing back a little bit because this leading edge does fit underneath the edge of the grill. So then once you pop that back, then you can slide it forward off of the latch. You can kind of wiggle that around to be able to pull this right off, and I'll set that aside. I'm going to get started with taking off some of these plugs. So first there's going to be a plug right here. You're just going to push in and wiggle this out. And then it was connected to this little zip tie clamp, which actually is broken on mine. So you're going to pop that out as well. There's another one that was broken with this little arm that was connected right here on this rail. And there is another one right here. We're going to pop that out. And then you're going to come underneath like the latch mechanism, and there's another plug. And you can kind of see like the backside right here. So you're going to push in on the top and bottom of it, and it releases that little clip that's attached to. And sometimes you can use this little pry tool to get kind of right in the little spaces. There we go. And I'm going to remove the plug that's actually connected to the latch mechanism, just to keep everything separate and to give this wire some more room. And because this car has so many broken like little clips and tabs, I'm not sure exactly how many more of those there's going to be. I did already have the battery disconnected from another job, but you're going to remove that with a 10mm bolt. Move this aside because we'll need to take the battery out. And now I'm going to come over to the other side and loosen this and wiggle that up and off of there. There we go. And now we have these two little bolts. We don't have to remove these all the way. We're just going to need to unscrew those just enough. There we go. Let's get them hand tight, or I guess hand loose. Alright, so once you remove those a little bit, on the bottom side there's actually a little hook. So once you get enough slack here, you'll be able to move these kind of down and get those wiggled out of place. There we go. I don't know if you can really see that right there. It's just like a little hook that hooks into like a little hole. And now we'll just come to the back side, wiggle that one out, and now we got both of those removed. Alright, so now we can remove the battery. Mine is sitting like in a little plastic sleeve, and it's kind of hard to get to a grip on it because there's no little ledges there. So I'm going to pick this up and out. Alright, so now we can reach down in here. There's another plug, a little gray one right there. I need to actually remove this little tray first. Gives you a little bit more room, actually quite a bit more room. And this plug is kind of firm, but we got it off. And there's a little tab, a little zip tie connection right here. And sometimes these do break. That one actually did not. But I will also include a link in the description down below for new little zip tie clips like that. So if they do break, you guys can pick up a new set of those because they're actually pretty cheap. Let's move all these wires out of the way. And there's this little hose that we're going to pop off as well. I'm going to use this little pry tool to get that hose off. There we go. Just gonna pop that off of there and then just stick it down out of the way. All right, so I'm gonna remove the cap for the coolant and then go on the underside of the car. We're gonna unplug a couple things as well as drain the fluid, and then by removing this, you're gonna allow the air to be able to flow in, and it can drain a lot easier and a lot faster. And you will want to have your car raised up. I'm actually using quick jacks. I will have links in the description down below if you guys do want to pick up a set of these. These are amazing for like every project, or you can even just use a standard jack and jack stands just to lift up the front end. But there typically should be a cover right here. My car does not have that, unfortunately, but there should be like a little cutout for where this drain plug would be. So this is the drain plug for the radiator, and there's this little I believe it's like a thermometer sitting right here. So we're gonna unplug this right there, and then we're going to get a bucket or a some kind of drain pan or something. I'm using a bucket, and we're gonna unscrew this. Sometimes they are pretty firm. In this case, it's not. So we're gonna unscrew that slowly. There we go. And I'm just going to let that go ahead and drain. Maybe I'll loosen it a little bit more. There we go. And I'll catch back up with you guys once it's fully drained. Alright, so this is pretty much done draining. I will go ahead and just tighten that back up. And then like the rest of the coolant that's in there, there's probably a little bit in there. We can dump that out later. Not a big deal. I'm going to just wipe that off so I don't get coolant on anything. So now let's go to the top side. We got a few more things to take off. So we'll put the cap back on just so that later nothing else spills out. We're gonna take off these two bolts, and this will allow us to take like the little drain fill. We're gonna move it back and below this bar right here. So there's also gonna be some bolts we have to take out in order to remove this entire top bar. For some reason on mine, I just realized that this top bolt right here is already removed. There's gonna be one on each side, and there's going to be one on the top, and then let me move the camera to show you guys the one on the front, and a couple other pieces we have to take off. All right, so there are these little L brackets right here. I will go ahead and pull this out. There's a bolt right here. I don't think these technically have to come out, but I feel like it's a lot easier to just go ahead and remove them. So when it comes to putting the new one back in place, it'll be a lot easier. There we go, and that just comes up and off. Just like that. And then there will be the same exact thing on the other side as well, so don't forget about that. There's also a T30, and you're gonna need a Torx for this. I'm gonna remove this screw, and that'll allow this front bumper to kind of flex out a little bit, and you can get into this bolt that's right back here. And I prefer using a little ratcheting wrench. These things are so convenient, especially when you can get right into little spots like that and be able to unscrew it. All right, so I'm going to pull that bolt out. It has a little washer on that, so make sure you don't lose that. And now we can remove the other bolts from the this whole top rail piece, which is going to be the other one right on top, and then right here on the bottom corner. Alrighty. And like I said, don't forget you have the same screws on the other side, so we're going to go ahead and remove those right now. All right, so now that we have all those bolts taken off, we can wiggle this entire piece up and out. There we go. Make sure you're not getting snagged on anything. This is the cable for the hood release. You can actually pop that off. I'm just going to leave it on there and just set this entire thing just up and out of the way very carefully so I don't damage anything and so this piece doesn't fall. There we go. So now we actually have plenty of space. We don't have to worry about taking all that off. So now what we're going to do is disconnect the hoses. There's the top hose and then the bottom hose. All right, so we'll start with removing the top hose. These are super convenient because they have like a locking position. So once you open them, if you squeeze hard enough, they'll actually hook into place. And if you did notice, this does have an additional hose clamp. It's kind of like the screw-on method. I will be going back to the original once I get the new hose on, because underneath here is actually where it's broken. So that's why there's an additional hose clamp on here. But let's go ahead and open these. All right, so these ones actually are not staying in place. So I will just slide it back a bit. There we go. And now we can just wiggle the hose off of here. Alrighty. So now we can go down and remove this bottom hose clamp right here. And as you can see, the whole thing is kind of moving around. So this is the final thing that's holding this in place. Yep, there we go. And actually kind of fell all the way down, but still onto the hose. So now we're going to remove this. Just takes like a little bit of wiggling, a little bit of persuasion. And just like that, we are now off. So everything else is disconnected out of the way. So let's go ahead, just raise up this entire thing. I would say keep this bottom hose kind of in the up position. Maybe this one as well, just because you don't want coolant or anything to be leaking out. There is some dripping out right here, so we'll move the bucket underneath because it's kind of dripping out of there. There's a couple drops out of this one as well. But let's go ahead and remove the radiator. Alright, so now that we have this whole thing off sitting on the ground, we're going to remove the little thermostat. So I'm going to use a 17 millimeter and hook this on here. There we go, now I got it loose. And we can just remove this by hand. Alright, so now we can set that aside to be able to put it into the new radiator. And we're also going to remove the lower hose. So what I'll do first is actually use these and take off the hose clamp. There we go. So now both these are in the unlock position. We're just going to wiggle this off. If you do want to reuse this hose, you don't have to worry about taking it off here. You just have to worry about taking off the bottom section. However, I will be replacing this hose, so I'm going to have to take it off regardless. Work this a little bit. There we go. Alrighty. And now to remove this, you're going to take a flathead screwdriver or a little pry tool like this. I do find that it's easier if you take it all the way off. And then it does wiggle straight up and off. These are pretty firm. Alright, and actually using the wrench worked a little bit better, using like that rounded section to kind of get some leverage under here. So now it's sliding up quite a bit. We should be able to maybe wiggle this off by hand. There we go. And it is pretty dirty, so I'm going to clean out the inside of this real quick. A little microfiber, and clean all around the new connection point as well. I'm actually not going to be reusing this, but I will be reusing these little clamps. And I will be taking off the hose refill section. And there's another little clamp on the back of this. And then we'll just move that clamp kind of up and out of the way. There we go. And now let's just try to carefully wiggle this off of here, because we will be reusing this, or at least I am in this situation. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and pull off these two fans. I won't be reusing this one because it's actually where all the coolant leaked down inside, and I guess this whole thing, maybe like coolant got inside of here and messed up the entire fan. This one still works perfectly fine, so I'm going to pull this off, set it with the new one, and then I'm just going to pull this one out and set it aside. And once you take the screws out, this side will lift up, and then you'll just slide the whole thing kind of this way, because those actually just sit in little tabs. So just like that, they are out. Alrighty. Oh, come on, now this one's sticking. There we go. And something else I want to add is you will want to pull these off of the bottom, because it's actually what the entire radiator sits on in the frame. Alright, so I'm going to start with this little thermostat thing. And on this side there's a little plug where I'm just going to remove this. And now we can just screw that right into place. And then we're going to use that wrench to tighten this thing up. And then let's go ahead and put in the new fan. So this fan hooks in right here. Let's grab that fan from the old one and set that here in place. Alright, so these are like the little zip ties where it kind of has like a pin on one side, and there's actually a huge variety pack that I got where there's all kinds of different bags of different sizes, different styles. So I will have a link in the description down below for these as well. So if you guys did break a lot of those, you can actually replace it with a lot of these. So for example, like one right here, I can just slide this in and then get that zip tie right through there. So now once we get everything installed back in, there is a few spots, like I think right here and along that top rail, where you will need some of those zip ties or some of those like new little mounting clips. So those things are really helpful. All right, so now let's go ahead and get the filler back installed, or I guess installed on the new one. So we're going to slide this down, and we're just going to get that hose clamp right back down into place. So now that's nice and secure. I'm going to wait and put the others on once I get this whole thing put back in the car, just because these tubes do have like different angles and stuff. So I want to make sure they line up perfectly whenever I put it in the car, because I don't want to have it like turn the wrong way and have to like try to like readjust everything. But I will go ahead and take this plug and get it installed onto this side. I'm going to grab that little metal piece, hook it back onto here, and then this will slide right on. It is nice and firm because there is a kind of like rubber like O-ring on the inside of that. So we're going to push that on until it hits, and then just like that, it's locked into place. So now let's head over to the car and get this thing put back in. All right, so let's go ahead and drop in the new radiator. Make sure I'm not hitting stuff on the way down. So now let me get the new hoses and go ahead and get those hooked up. All right, so before I put the new hose clamp on, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it down in here and just see, make sure that everything fits with it properly, kind of lining up. And it actually appears that it's a bit longer than the original by a few inches. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and cut off a couple inches of this, line it back up, and then if I need to trim a little bit more off, I can. All right, so I trimmed a little bit off of this. Then I'm going to hold it back up, and that actually looks a lot better. So now, let me actually hook on the bottom side first. All right, now I got the bottom hooked up. I'm going to slide on the hose clamps. We'll slide one all the way down to the bottom, and then have the other one kind of hold it a little bit closer to the top. And let's slide this tube right on into place. All right, so I'm going to get the hose clamp up into kind of position where I want it. And then I'm going to use this little tool to try to pop that back open. There we go. So now if you want to like kind of rearrange where it's at, you can now use your pliers. Just kind of shift that around. All right, so now we have the other hose. I went ahead and got the clamps kind of set on here. So now let's actually slide it onto the radiator first. There we go. And let's get this onto this part of the car. All right, so now that is nice and snug. Let's go ahead and move these clamps into position. So now I'm going to go to the underside and get the bottom one put back on. And we're going to go ahead and plug in that little thermostat. All right, so now we're going to grab this entire rail system. We're going to put it kind of back in place. Alright, just make sure you move everything kind of out of the way first. Actually, I need to turn this hose clamp right here because it actually is hitting on this. So let me go ahead and turn that probably about 90 degrees to get it out of the way. Alright, there we go. We got that right back up on top. Everything is seated nicely. Alright, so let's go ahead and put the bolts back in and get this main frame rail mounted in place. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is take these little zip tie clips, and there's numerous spots where there should be one, so I'm going to stick those into place. Alright, so now let's run these around. You essentially want to get all these wires run all the way back up through, and it should be kind of obvious where they do hook onto. And there's multiple spots along the way. Like here's another one where the original one is still hooked on here. Alright, so you want to make sure that you do plug in the plug for the latch and get that all situated. And then also the other fan. And get that plugged in right there. Actually, I cannot believe how many of these I've had to reuse, or had to use new ones of Alright, and just like that, we have all the wires hooked up and secured all the way around behind this bar. And now we can take this little hose right here and plug that back up onto there. So we are going to go ahead and put in the battery, because once we fill up this entire system, in order to bleed it, we'll have to actually start the car. Just going to set this right down in there. Make sure it's all situated how it should be. I'm going to grab these, bring them down, and hook them in through the same exact holes that we had earlier. I'm going to go back and forth so that they both sit nice and even. Alright, so now that is nice and snug, not too tight. So let's go ahead and hook up the battery. Alright, so now we're ready to fill up the coolant. I'm actually using this one right here. It is a 50-50 blend, and it's the blue one. We will be using this funnel as well as these specific attachments in order to fill this up and also bleed out the system. You're probably going to need a couple of these, but there also will be links for this down in the description down below. You guys can actually pick it up on Amazon, have this delivered to your house. Alright, so we'll begin with taking this cap back off. And now we're going to take this little fitting, we're going to set it right into place. We'll take this little piece and it's going to pop down onto there. And then that'll just tighten right in place. So now it's nice and snug and secure, it's not going anywhere. We're going to take the funnel with this little plunger inside. We can actually take that out for now. And we will be using that later on, because once we fill this whole thing up, we can actually put that down in there to be able to pull out the excess. So what we're going to do is fill this whole thing up. It's going to come up, it's going to bubble down, and we're going to keep doing that until we kind of see all the bubbles stop. So let's go ahead and start filling. You might want to have a rag with you too, because this does kind of bubble and it might splash a little bit. I actually have the original lid that can kind of set on it here in just a little bit. Alright, so I just got to the point where it stopped bubbling. I kept adding more. We're on the second jug, and I don't know if you can really see it, but the level is about right there. It's about one whole jug and about a third of a second one. So now we're going to go ahead and start the car up and let this just continue to bubble. And as the thermostat kind of opens up, it's going to start pulling in a lot more coolant as well. I will be setting this back on top, as it will be splashing everywhere because it does bubble a lot while the car is running. So let's go ahead and do that, let it sit for a few minutes and get fully warmed up. Alright, so I went to go start the car and the battery was dead. So now let's go ahead and get this started. I did notice the color of this is a little darker. It's perfectly fine. I have seen that does happen. So let's go ahead and get the car started and just have this lightly sitting on there so that air can still escape from there. Alright, so I did run it until it stopped bubbling, so let me take this top off. And the reason for this plug is now we can take this and put it right down in the middle of that. So now we can lift the whole thing up without actually dropping all that. And I did notice that the little reservoir off to the side doesn't have any coolant in it at all. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew the top of this. And there is a minimum and maximum fill line. So I'm going to pull that all the way out. And we're just going to take this entire thing, pick it up, and put it onto that. I will put the towel down just in case it does spill anything. And then we pull this up and out of the hole. Okay, I did get a little bit spilled there, but not that big of a deal. And then we'll just take out that middle plunger to release some of the coolant. Alright, and then a lot of the coolant does slowly kind of recede back into here. So I'm just going to wipe up some of the coolant that I did spill that's kind of laying around. And let's see if that's, yeah, it's pretty hot. Alright, so now we can unscrew this and pull off this whole thing. And put the original one back on. There we go. And then don't forget to put the cap back on the little reservoir like I almost forgot to. And then you can go ahead and put the cover back on. Alright guys, so if this video did help you out, definitely put down in the comments down below. If you have any feedback or even any questions, put down in the comments as well. I do go through and read those, so if you guys have any questions, I can try to help you out the best I can. But like I said, there will be links in the description down below for all the Amazon parts. You guys can get these, all the parts, the tools, the liquids, everything that you need is going to be on Amazon, so definitely check those out. Links in the description down below. But if you guys did like the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. But as always, thank you for watching.